Right now, the convention has kicked off, and we're there. We're going to bring you all the very latest live from Tampa. And next,
we're running for those folks that are really worried about how they're going to have a paycheck.
Is this mission possible? Can you humanize Mitt Romney? Well, Ann has been saddled with that job here, and it's a tough one at the RNC, making her husband appear more human here and more relatable to the middle class. Can she do it? And later,
heard 6 or 7 gunshots, very crisp, very loud.
Some now questioning police protocol in the aftermath of the shooting outside of the Empire State Building. Some are asking, if possible, is there any procedures that could have contained the damage? We'll talk to an expert. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this special edition of RFL. I'm Richard French, and thank you so much for joining us this Monday evening, August 27th. Well, tonight, we're going to bring you live to Tampa, as I said, for all the latest developments from a convention. And in fact, let's get right to it. House Republicans, they had to make quick change of plans here as Tropical Storm Isaac bears down on the Gulf states. Now, the delegates, they're prepping to nominate Mitt Romney, as you know, as their candidate, but they've had to tone down the festivities. This is not how Republicans pictured the first day of their convention in Tampa.
Called to order.
It was a quick session, less than a minute, just a formality to officially kick off the 2012 Republican convention. The party, it was shortened by a day due to one very unwelcome guest, Tropical Storm Isaac. For now, the Republican ticket is staying away. Vice presidential contender Paul Ryan's pushed his arrival in Tampa off until tomorrow due to Isaac. Today, his hometown of Janesville, Wisconsin, threw him a raucous send-off.
Everywhere I look, I see so many familiar faces.
Mitt Romney's at his home in New Hampshire working on his acceptance speech, scheduled for Thursday night in prime time.
I like my speech. I really like Ann's speech.
Both speeches will be big moments for the campaign, a chance to reset the narrative. A new ABC News Washington Post poll shows the race is a dead heat, with President Obama still dogged by voters' dismal outlook on the economy. But Romney, he has not been able to capitalize. A substantial number, 58%, say the Republican candidate would do more to favor the wealthy over the middle class. Republicans, they're keenly aware of the risky optics of holding a grand party with Isaac barreling towards the Gulf Coast. Its target, New Orleans.
Our thoughts are with the people that are in the storm's path and hope that they're spared any major destruction.
But convention officials don't want to engage in what-if scenarios about the impact Isaac could have on the rest of the week.
As of now, there's no planned changes.
Now, Republican governors from Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana will all skip the convention as they prep for Isaac's arrival. And to give us more an idea of what could be happening in those states, let's bring in 5-star meteorologist John Heyman. Now, John, explain to the folks how Isaac will impact the convention, because we thought it would go right over Tampa, but it's changed course, but not for the better, though, for a lot of those Gulf states, right?
For the Gulf states, for the worse. We're talking about New Orleans, the Panhandle, but certainly better for the Republican convention. Originally, it looked like the storm was going to come very close to Tampa. To really get those tropical storm and also hurricane force winds, you really need to be near the storm, about 50 miles away. But now we're looking at that storm about 200 miles or so west of Tampa. So while we're seeing some of the outer bands, the worst of the rain certainly staying well to the west of Tampa, along with the worst of the winds. But you can see some of those heavy rain bands and a flood warning in effect for Tampa. The actual track now, you can see how close it takes it to New Orleans tomorrow night. By about 2 a.m., it'll have winds of about 100 miles per hour as a Category 2 storm coming in very close to the Mississippi Delta. And then by Wednesday afternoon, the exact anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, it'll be moving right across New Orleans with winds of about 90 miles per hour and then eventually moving on to Baton Rouge. There again is your track, your latest stats up to 70 miles per hour, so just about a hurricane. Wind gusts well in excess of 86, but you can see the central dense overcast, the worst of the storm, well again west of Tampa. We're just seeing some of those outer bands right now, so there is some heavy rain. There's a tropical storm warning in effect for the coastal waters, not in effect for the land areas, as winds there have been under tropical storm force. You can see the latest winds in Tampa now out of the southeast at 8, gusting to 16, so not too bad. Certainly the worst of it, Rich, will be the very heavy rainfall, as right now Tampa's under a flood warning, so that could affect things, but the worst of the storm will be passing by.
But to give an idea for optics, John, when you talk about the category, if it's a 2 and the winds that you're talking about, Gulfport, some of the coastal cities in Mississippi, as well as obviously New Orleans here in Baton Rouge, we could be talking about a lot of water, right?
Yeah, you could be talking about a lot of water. They're also on the worst side of the storm. When you take a look at that part of Louisiana that actually faces east, just north of the Mississippi Delta, right up to Gulfport, Biloxi, Mississippi, that's right where the water is going to funnel in. And they're going to see a 6 to 10 foot storm surge, which is the worst, most deadly part of the storm. So aside from the flooding we're going to see from the rains, we're going to see 6 to 10 foot waves on top of that. So there's certainly going to be a lot of devastation on the coast in that area.
John, thank you very much. And I want to bring in our own Andrew Whitman, who is live now in Tampa. And Andrew, we just got the forecast here. Looks like you guys are obviously going to be spared the worst of it, but let's talk about the optics. If you look straight up, you're going to see, obviously, what we see at all of them, a big collection of balloons. It always drops on the Thursday night here. You have the bands coming out. It's a party with all the bunting. How does the RNC, or the GOP, rather, navigate the image that they're having a good time when their Gulf State neighbors here having boarded windows and flooding in their streets?
Well, I don't think they're going to try to tone down the convention. I don't think they're going to try to stop their delegates from having a good time. Obviously, they've already lost the first day of this convention today because of storm preps and concerns that delegates wouldn't be able to get here. I don't think there's any chance that they cut the convention short because of what's going on there. I wouldn't be surprised to see some mentions from the floor, some speeches or some other things related to the official activities of the convention, showing concern, showing heartfelt worry for the people who are in the impacted area. We've already heard from John Boehner today, who's going to be the chairman of the convention, saying he's more focused on the storm than he is on the convention. So that wouldn't surprise me if there were official parts. You might also possibly, depending on the timing of this, who knows if you see a Mitt Romney visit to an impacted area before he makes his way down to Tampa. That, obviously, we haven't heard anything about. But I can't imagine they're going to cut anything short or really try to tone things down. I guess they're just going to try to mention it as best they can, Rich.
All right, Andrew, let's talk about the risk and rewards of this week. And there's a lot on the plate here that Republicans want to do. But when I look at the platform and the list of speakers, it's obviously one very geared to the conservative wing of the party. That's not without precedent. But at the same time, the real mission statement here is that Mitt Romney is going to convince those undecided voters out there that he's their guy. And when you look at the breakdown from a gender standpoint, the women voters he's not doing as well as. He's also got to answer that, while at the same time sharing a stage with a running mate that's much more conservative than him, at least looking historically at their voting records. Seems like a tough balance.
Yeah, he is, and I've talked to a number of members of the New York and New Jersey delegations. Obviously, Republicans from the tri-state area are less conservative than their brethren from other portions of the country. Everybody trying to deflect attention away from the platform, everybody trying to make the point that, Mitt Romney is the one who's running for president. It's his policy, it's his vision that's the one that's going to be highlighted, but that is a concern. I don't think you're going to see much about it except just a focus on Mitt Romney's positions and where he stands with this, and trying to better craft an image of Mitt Romney as a caring father, as a religious man, that sort of thing, and hope that the message and the story surrounding Mitt Romney sort of overshadows those lingering questions about the platform. I think you would expect to see that kind of rhetoric about the platform next week in Charlotte.
Andrew, if we give people a quick idea of what we're going to see, and you'll obviously be there all week, and we'll be bringing viewers starting tomorrow night at 10 o'clock special hour coverages in addition to our 6 p.m. show. Tomorrow night, the big speakers we're going to be looking out for, Chris Christie. It's going to be the red meat portion of it. He's going to go directly after President Obama, we believe. And you're also going to see Ann Romney, who's going to really try and humanize her husband here and talk about not just who he is as a husband and as a father here, but also the evolution of him to where he got to where he is today. That's an important address, right?
It absolutely is. The Ann Romney address, it's hoped, will set up the Mitt Romney speech on Thursday, and the Mitt Romney speech on Thursday may be the most important speech of his political life thus far, certainly of the campaign so far. You're also going to see a collection of speakers trying to frame Mitt Romney, who he is, and portray him as a man perhaps that hasn't been portrayed in the media. You mentioned the Chris Christie address tomorrow night. There is a concern perhaps of overstepping, of overreaching, especially with everything happening with Isaac in the Gulf, that perhaps there could be a risk of hammering President Obama too hard in a way that the American people might not necessarily agree with, Rich.
All right, and I'll check back in with you, Andrew, in about 20 minutes. I'll see you then. All right, let's bring in our roundtable, everyone. We're joined here by Jeannie Zaino, Dean, Professor of Political Science from Iona College, good friend, Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, and Frank Morano, radio talk show host. You did a great job the last time we was on here. And Jeannie, let me start with you, the risk rewards of this week. What are, if it goes perfectly, and they leave Tampa late Thursday night, Friday morning, what's the best case scenario and what's the worst case scenario for the GOP this week?
Well, you know, I think what they have to do to make everything go well is they have to define, say, who Mitt Romney is, and second, they have to differentiate him from Barack Obama, and they have to say why he would do a better job than Barack Obama. And to this point that Andrew was talking about, you were talking about the dangers of having a Chris Christie up there, you know, speaking negatively. It's fine to speak negatively about the president from a policy perspective, and they have to do that. They have to say, this is what Mitt Romney will do differently. This is why he's more prepared. We've given Barack Obama 4 years. These are the results. This guy, Mitt Romney, this is who he is. He can do better, and you can trust him. So I think they have to define who he is and say what he's going to do differently and remind the American people it has been 4 years, and the policies we have in place have left us with an economy in devastating shape.
And Dominic, certainly the national audience is a divided one right now. Every poll says what we already knew, this thing was going to be really close. But when you break things down, to me, I look at the blocks, and people that aren't white in this country are voting basically 3-1 for Obama over Romney. The female breakdown, the key swing states are breaking for Barack Obama. But it's close because you got a lot of people dissatisfied with the economy, and they might want to vote for anybody, even those that love Mitt Romney, but even those that aren't too crazy about him might want to change for change's sake. Does he have to reach out to the middle here this week, or is he just trying to ramp up the base? I'm talking about Mitt Romney because it seems that he's throwing the red meat out to what they want, but is that really going to get him any more votes than he would have had before this week started?
Both. He has to re-energize the right, which is not as difficult a job.
Aren't they fired up already after they got Paul Ryan?
Yes, but he has to give them a reason to turn out. But at the same time, this is his first real opportunity to introduce himself to the American people. Let's face it, folks, they watch shows like this, but they have really not been paying that close of attention to the presidential race. Now Labor Day is when it really starts. This is going forward is the showdown time. This is the time, make or break.
Yep.
Mitt Romney can make his campaign, and he can close the gender gap with his wife making the case to humanize him.
Frank, same question to Jeannie. Give me the best and worst case scenarios that come out of this week for the Republicans.
Well, the worst case scenario is if Hurricane Isaac delays the convention further and denies Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan the opportunity to make a fiery convention speech introducing themselves to America. That's the worst case scenario. The penultimate worst case scenario is if Todd Akin remains on the front page, particularly among female Democrat and independent voters, because now in an election that should be about the economy, the focus has been on all the issues that Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan don't want the focus on, and the issues that they're not going to win female voters with. If they're going to be competitive, let alone win, they're going to have to make a serious play for female voters that are Democrats and independents.
Good enough. All right, we're going to jump to a break here. When we come back here, we're going to keep the conversation going. I'm also asking you at home to get involved online. Go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Richard French Live, and sound off. Again, the same question I just asked our panel. What are the GOP's biggest opportunities and risks this week in Tampa? It could be the weather, it could be the platform, it could be the agenda, it could be the messaging. We're going to get to all of that when we come back. And when we return, will the GOP's right-leaning platform cause Romney to lose some of those moderate voters when he's got a chance to certainly bring them into the fold? We're going to get into that after this.